from a fundamental perspective, there are certain things that you guys already know in your training of ninjutsu. You know that in ninjutsu there's inen, there's yonin, so you know there's dark ninjutsu, there's light ninjutsu. You guys are already catching on to that. Through most of your guys' training, you guys have already covered, you know, the classical 7 disguises or 6 tools or 5 spies. So you're starting to paint a picture on what historical ninja would have been, right? What the goals were and things like that, right? I'm sweating just I don't know if it's just as much or just as more or whatever as you guys, right?
It's human.
It is very human. Okay, so Ninpo is a word that we use as infiltration. You have to infiltrate the enemy's stronghold. And that comes in a variety of different methods and techniques, and it's a word that is very easily understood but massively deep to understand how to do that. We've talked about, again, variety of things, tools you guys would use, disguises you would be if you're yonin, dressing in black or whatever you would do to hide yourself out of the vision if you were inen, so on and so forth. We've even discussed things that we see from the Ninpo, like using animal pelts as you're coming close to the enemy stronghold to kind of hide your scent so that the dogs are, can't pick up your smell. We've talked about after you guys get in using kunai and things like that to get into footholds so you can stay above inside the eaves of the home so no one sees you. We've talked about this before. We've talked about using hot water or oils or urine to put on the doorways. So when you slide a shoji door back and forth, it doesn't make any sound. We've discussed these kind of techniques. All of you guys have heard all this stuff before. But when we talk about Ninpo, the infiltration, it's everything that you understood or understand has to go into effect. So if I'm going to be going to the enemy stronghold, first of all, how do I get to the target? Am I going to be doing something to where I'm going to be seen? I'm not going to be seen. Am I going to be on the beaten path, or I'm going to be off the beaten path? Do I have to be in disguise? Right? If you are going to be in disguise, do you guys understand like dako, which is like the speech, the dialect that you need to know when you go to a certain prefecture? Even within certain prefectures, there's still different customs and traditions in every prefecture. Even though, even if you're like in the Shiga prefecture, where people call that koka, right? So you have Lake Biwa. On one side of the lake, there's going to be certain customs, and on the other side of the lake, there'll be different customs. And that's in the same damn prefecture. So wherever you're going, you have to know the customs and tradition and the way they do things and how they talk, and you have to know all those things before you get there. Or obviously you're not going to fit in, right? So we talk about Ninpo, and it's a very easy word, and everyone talks about infiltration, but the difficulty of doing it has to be very planned out, very meticulous if you're going to do that. The goal of Ninpo is to be able to get in without anybody knowing you're there. You can't leave a trace, you can't leave a footprint. So if you go into some area, and even if you get there, but if you've left a foot mark or you left a trace, they're going to know who it was. Right? There's no way around it. If you go in and you're like, walking through the thickets and the weeds, and everywhere you're going, you're stomping on the grass, and there's just like footprints all the way down the road, it's very obvious that's the way they came, if there's someone tries to look for you. So it's not just about infiltrating the stronghold, it's infiltrating the targeted area without being seen. And it's not just being seen, it's also targeted, not unnoticed, and undetected. And those are not always the same thing, because when you leave, you don't want them to know that you've been there either, which is part of Tanpo, which is evasion skills. So when you leave, wherever your exit is, you don't want to leave where your footprints are, or the way that you went, or any of those kind of things, because then they can track and know where you are. You should also set traps when you leave, so that let's say that you're going to leave, and let's say I'm going to come in on this road, but I'm going to leave on that road. Well, whatever way that you leave, you would want to make sure that you scatter caltrops or set little traps and things like that, so it would slow them down, so it gives you time to create more distance between you and the people that's coming after you. You know what I mean? But the infiltration, or Ninpo and Tanpo, is really important when it comes to understanding carrying out a mission. But the planning and understanding the terrain and the environment, the elements, is an extremely important aspect of ninjutsu. The reason I think it's very important is because we live in an age where, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but we live in an age where I think that the people follow a certain trend because they believe that the trend is the right thing to do, and they buy into the safety net of it. The other day, Mr. Dupree was showing me a video of a robot that was dancing, and then another robot that was dancing, and then a dog that's a police dog. These are all robots. right? What do you see on TV? You guys see MMA, boxing, kickboxing? These are the baddest people around, right? Do you really think hand-to-hand combat against a robot or a police dog that's a robot is going to be effective? Well, you do nothing. It's not like there's pain compliance. So you have zero self-defense skills against that if you do boxing, kickboxing, or MMA. Zero. There's no karate technique that's going to stop a robot from coming after you, if that's the program, if that's what they're supposed to do, right? And we're seeing this already in the media now. It's going to be much greater emphasis 5 years from now. If we're already seeing robots as police officers, it's going to be more and more as the years go on. That's the trend. But what we also see on TV is MMA, boxing, and kickboxing. You don't see a lot of people really teaching survival skills, true survival skills. You see people teaching survival skills that aren't, not that they're not real and not that they're not talented, but it's in an unreal situation, like naked and afraid type stuff. When are you gonna be naked in the middle of like some swamp area or Africa for 21 days or whatever it is, right? That's not, not that they're not excellent survivalists, they are, I'm not taking away their skill set, but what they're doing isn't set in a realistic situation. Where I feel like Ninjutsu constantly focuses on the realistic scenario of true self-defense and true survival. So, without doubt, Ninjutsu and Bujutsu is weapons-based training. I know that some other schools like Karate-Do or whatever, Judo or Aikido, those are empty-handed based martial arts that also have weapons. It's not like they don't train in weapons, they do, but their system is more dominantly steeped in empty-handed training, and then they add weapons to it. Ninjutsu is much different. Everything is very much steeped in weapons training. Weapons training is crucial within Ninjutsu and Bujutsu. We do Taijutsu as a form to train empty-handed combat, and we train that in the beginning for most beginner students because if you can't control your own body, you can't control a weapon. But once you learn how to use your body, everything's weapons-based. That's the way it's supposed to be. It's a weapons-based martial art, right? You can't think of a ninja and a samurai without thinking they have a weapon, whether it's a sword or a knife or a stick or whatever it is that they have, right? So we're in this age where you see the robot dogs and the robot cops and the internet's everywhere, and people are doing this stuff to get billions of dollars or whatever on the internet, and other countries are hacking into our servers and all this other stuff, and what we're defending ourselves against isn't a right wrist grab or a left punch. And then when you get on TV, oh, dude, look at the boxing and the kickboxing and the sports stuff, and the same people that are on the same channels, using that same TV network, that they know that if you get excited about boxing or kickboxing or whatever it is, they have the advantage. You can have some type of government police officer or security guard or whatever their position may be, but an average guy that's just not good at his job, 50, 60, 70 pounds overweight, but if he's got, a firearm, a nightstick, and a taser, your 10 years of boxing skills is at a disadvantage. Empty-handed combat in Taijutsu does have its place. It does. But it's in a very specific distance in a very limited capacity. Right? How many times in your guys' life, you don't have to answer, how many times in your life has someone just walked up to you when you're at the gas station and they just sucker punched you? Or just wanted to fight you? You know what I mean? Of course we train for that situation. We do. But the reality of it is that's not the dominant threat. The dominant threat that we have is the other day I had a student that was worried that, someone just copied his bank card. And then maybe someone stole his information, take all of his money. Another student lost a bank card, So now someone else has access to all his information and money. Right? We have to defend ourselves against threats like that constantly, not someone walking up with a right wrist grab. But then you have the martial arts schools that focus on empty-handed combat. And And again, we do empty-handed combat. This isn't me trying to say that's terrible. No, we train in empty-handed, you guys know that. But the emphasis needs, if you're going to be doing true, what I say, Go Shinjutsu, or true self-defense training, or true to the point, we have to do it in a way that would be relevant in the time of which we live. We're doing this annual stealth camp because I want to preserve the history and tradition of the ninja. I've dedicated my life to ninjutsu. I've been given a huge responsibility. I'm one of the handful of people who have inherited a ninja tradition, and I'm talking to the world all the time about how true ninjutsu should be all over the world. So I'm preserving history and tradition by having us train in these historical ways of espionage and Japanese martial arts, right? Okay. But then there's also, we have to preserve the essence of that, which isn't just, okay, let's do stealth walking. We're going to do stealth walking. How does that work today? Because you can't punch and kick a police dog that's a robot. But you can put 2 rounds in the battery, and that's an easy way to turn the thing off, right? If you're not a weapon, well then now you've limited yourself in that capacity. And then we see these people say, well, ninjutsu isn't relevant in the modern day. Ninjutsu is about thinking, using the elements, what do you call that, unconventional tactics to achieve an objective. I can't imagine a time in history where ninjutsu wouldn't be more needed. Right? The same people that'll tell you ninjutsu isn't needed, they're the ones that probably run a fundamental martial art that's based on empty-handed combat. They're going to do taijutsu and play with sticks. They're not doing ninjutsu. And then what happens when shit hits the fan? We're going through a global pandemic. All of us fight that every day. You can't punch it, right? Yeah. So coming back to the idea of Ninpo and Tanpo, to infiltrate something, it has to be massively planned out. You have to think about everything. So you guys are the ones that have to come up with your own personal ideas of, okay, if stock market crashes, if the economy crashes, if my household was to get infected with COVID, if I lost my job, if this, you have to wait. You have to have a plan that you can carry out those tactics to get the objective that you need. You have to, and if you don't have the plan, you're at a disadvantage. That's why we still continue to train, because the necessity of if you need to have it, you have it.